On the surface, Lori Vallow was the picture-perfect mom, beautiful, smiling, and devoted to her children. But behind the image lurked a world of apocalyptic prophecies, twisted love, and deadly conspiracies. In less than a year, Lori's husband, her children, and her new lover's wife were all dead. Buried under doomsday beliefs in a trail of lies, this case shocked the world. Not just for the brutality of the crimes, but for the chilling way faith was weaponized to justify murder. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of A Brush with Death. Yeah, I'm your host, Miss Casey Hanalei, and in this series, I sit down, I tell you a true crime story, and I finish an art project at the same time. So if you love listening to true crime and you love art, please hit that subscribe button and like and comment this video. It really helps my channel out, and that way you will never miss another story of mine that's horrible and terrible, but hopefully inspirational at the end. So I hope that you do that. All right, so who are we talking about today? We are talking about the Lori Vallow Daybell case. This is the Doomsday Mom case, if you are living under a rock and haven't heard of it. I was obsessed with this case when it first came out. It just kind of concluded within this year, right? So it's been a crazy ride, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. And let's get into it. Let's hear all the wild craziness that is Lori Vallow's life. So let's get into it, guys. All right, so who was Lori? So Lori was born June 26, 1973. Born Lori Noreen Cox in Loma Linda, San Bernardino County in California. She was raised in the LDS Church, the Latter-day Saint Mormon Church, and pretty strict family, it seemed like. One of the most revealing accounts comes from Lori's high school best friend, Bernadette Flores Lopez. She described Lori as a very charismatic, cheerful person. She said she was a doll. She recalled saying that Lori was really, really friendly, not overly friendly, but just really sweet. She said the girl the team threw into the air, she was a cheerleader. So I think she was a quintessential cheerleader. And she was the designated team's flyer, and I was best friends with the flyer in high school. So hi, Katie, how's it going? Anyways, although she was really quiet, Lori was also hilarious, and she had everyone laughing hysterically all the time, making jokes, and she just seemed really popular and really friendly. The cheer squad regularly gathered at her family's home, and she came from a very large, very devout Mormon family, like I said before. And her home was very welcoming and was a place where the teammates could hang out and swim and, just be girls. So sounds nice and picturesque for now, right? When she was young, she was academically focused, and her religious path seemed pre-planned. She reportedly intended to serve on a mission, which is typical of LDS teens and young adults. They usually go on a mission for, I actually don't know how long, maybe a few years, and then they kind of come back into the community. So this is pretty typical, and she wanted to attend Brigham Young University. Despite growing up in different parts of town, she treated everyone equally, and she was very likable. That's what everyone said about young Lori. 2004, before, everything happened, right? She actually appeared on Wheel of Fortune and competed in the Miss Texas pageant. So both very widely publicized, and it's just, there is footage of it. There's footage of both, and there's footage of her on Wheel of Fortune. She seems very normal and very smart, and she even came away with a few $1,000s, which very smart. And then Miss Texas, this is, all during the time she already had her son Colby at this time, and she competed in Miss Texas, and she looked banging. She looked good. Like, I mean, I've had a few kids, right? So, like, body doesn't always bounce back. It's fine. Bounce back culture is toxic. Don't listen to it. But anyways, she looked fantastic. And there's even pictures of her in the swimsuit competition for Miss Texas. I mean, wow. So in 1992, she married her high school boyfriend, Nelson Yanes, and the marriage quickly ended in divorce. I think this was kind of, so I come from like a religious background, right? And I still, consider myself not religious, but spiritual, I guess. But anyways, I grew up in not LDS, but similar, kind of, conservative Christian background. And that was kind of the way, right? They don't call it ring by spring for nothing. If you've never heard of ring by spring, it is a thing that girls usually say if you go to college or even before college, high school boyfriends and stuff. If you don't have a ring by spring, then what are you doing with your life? So that's what I would say, ring by spring, right? That was the goal. That was everyone's goal, in my life anyways. So I didn't do that. So I did not follow that way. Anyways, so it seemed like that was kind of this case. Maybe she was pressured into it, thinking that this was the plan and this is what was supposed to happen. And unfortunately, that marriage quickly ended in divorce. In 1995, she marries William LaGoya, and she had a son, Colby, born April 8th, 1996. So, and then a few years later, she competes in Miss Texas. Dang. But this marriage, unfortunately, ends in the late 90s as well. So, I think it's rude to keep track of someone's marriages, but we're just going to do it. Maybe we'll put a clicker down here or something. So that's 2 marriages for her. In 2001, Lori marries Joseph Ryan, and she has a daughter, Tylee Ryan, who was born in 2002. But this ends in a very, very bitter divorce and custody battle. It didn't seem like her first 2 marriages ended poorly, but this one really ended poorly. And maybe it's kind of a glimpse into Lori's mental state at the time. We will see, like, by the end of this case, there's definitely evidence of mental illness. So I'm just kind of wondering, is this where it starts? Was there abuse in this marriage? If so, did that kind of exacerbate mental illness? Anyway, so court records show that Lori accused Joseph, her ex-husband, of sexually abusing Tylee and also Colby. These accusations were investigated but never substantiated, and the judge found them to be unproven. So if it is true, then that's a really horrible situation, and I'm glad that they got out of that situation. But there has been cases where it isn't true, and you've just basically ruined someone else's life by accusing them of something. For what? Because you're vindictive? Because you want to get back at them? I don't know. But it was unproven, so who knows? It could be true, could not be true. So in 2006, I want to say 2006, this is when Lori meets Charles Vallow. So this is, what is this? Marriage number 4. So she marries Charles Vallow. And by all accounts, Charles seemed to be a very, very wonderful man and absolutely adored Lori. In 2013, this is when Lori and Charles adopted Joshua J.J. Vallow. This was Charles's grandnephew through Kay and Lori Woodcock, which was JJ's grandparents. So I'm not really sure the situation there. I think I remember seeing that JJ's parents were like drug addicts or something. Don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure. I didn't actually look it up and verify, but something happened there where they could not take care of JJ. And JJ was diagnosed autistic as well. So he was, just a little extra love and care for this child, right? So It seemed like the grandparents tried to take care of him for a while, but he was just a little too much for them to handle. They were a little older. So Charles and Lori actually adopted little JJ, which was, at the time, very, very wonderful for them to do. So through 2014 to 2017, this is when Lori and Charles lived in Kauai, Hawaii, with Tylee and JJ. This is where my middle name actually comes from, is Kauai, the Hanalei Bay. Just a little stupid connection that I make to myself during this episode, so sorry. In Hawaii, neighbors recalled that Lori was seen as a super mom. She was very friendly, organized, well-dressed, unflappable, I like that word, and the kind of person others admired and aspired to emulate. Even Leah Tucker, a neighbor, said that she was always well put together. I wanted to be just like her. Did you, Leah? Do you want to now? April 3rd, 2018, this is when Lori's ex-husband, Joseph Ryan, the one that, she accused of abusing her children, he dies, later determined to be natural causes from a heart attack. Though, with knowing what we know now, could it have been something else? There has been nothing opened up to reinvestigate this case, just FYI, but in hindsight, suspicion lingers because of Lori's history of accusing others of, what she will accuse them of later on, of being dark and being zombies and all that. We will get into it. If you haven't heard this case, guys, it is cuckoo nuts bananas and a little hard to keep straight. So she's on marriage number 4, remember, so just try to keep it straight in your head. She has 2 children and 1 adopted child, Colby, Tylee, JJ. Okay, she's married to Charles. Okay, cool. All right, in 2018, Lori meets Doomsday author Chad Daybell at a religious conference and begins embracing extreme apocalyptic beliefs that later surface in court. So just remember that. So who was this Chad? And he looks like a Chad. No offense to Chads out there. Chad is a wonderful name. But he looks like a Chad. All right. Is it? Oh, Cad. You Cad. That's something you can call people. That's not very nice. But Chad, Cad. Maybe it's not a coincidence that they rhyme. Anyways, who was Chad? He was a former gravedigger turned Latter-day Saints themed doomsday author. How does that work out? So apparently the story is that he had several near-death experiences, or that he had passed away. He had this drowning incident where he was rescued, and then I don't remember what the other one was. But he basically said that he could see between the veil. So he's one of those people that can see the light and dark in people. He can see what's on the other side of this veil between this world and the spiritual world. Okay? Because he had these near-death experiences. He claimed to have a lot of visions and revelations. His teachings created a private cult-like worldview that he and others, and including Lori, embraced very wholeheartedly. And there was actually there's this one podcast that they were featured on as well. Him and Lori went on it and they talked about all this stuff, and it has since been taken down, but I would have loved to hear that. But anyway, so what specifically did they believe? So Chad, Lori, and his followers believed in light and dark ratings. So Chad taught that every person's spirit could be classified on a spectrum from light to dark. Light meaning that they are aligned with God's plan, and dark meaning that they were possessed, corrupted, or controlled by evil spirits. These ratings weren't static, they could be changed. And Chad claimed that they could change, and he often declared certain people had become dark. Oh, no. I'm sorry I'm making light of this situation, because it really is just bananas how crazy this sounds and is. Sorry, guys. So they also believed in zombies, and possession. So Chad and Lori told friends that people could become zombies if their spirits left their bodies and were replaced by evil spirits. Once someone had become a zombie, they were considered beyond saving and sometimes needed to be, quote unquote, removed so their true spirit could be freed. Lori reportedly told her friend Melanie Gibb that JJ had become a zombie and that Tylee had turned dark years earlier. So that's just a little foreshadowing to what's actually going to happen. And they also believed in reincarnation, past lives, special missions. So Chad claimed to have lived multiple past lives and had direct communication with spiritual beings. He told Lori she was an exalted goddess. I mean, that's just kind of nice to tell your partner. But this was very sinister way, chosen to help her usher in the second coming of Christ. You think you've been chosen by... This is how delulu we are becoming. The delusion is so strong. Lori believes she and Chad were destined to lead the 144,000 chosen to survive the apocalypse. So this is actually in the Bible too. They mention, I think it's in Revelation, which is a terrifying book, by the way. If you ever do a study on Revelation, buckle up and hold on to your butts. It's scary crap. Not crap. It's not crap. I think it's good to know, but anyways. So the 144,000, that's actually in the Bible. And it was said to be the chosen people of the end times, of when Jesus comes back and takes his believers up to heaven, and there will be left the 144,000. At least that's how I perceive it, but let me know if I'm wrong. I think that's how it goes. I grew up in the church, but whenever I came to Revelation, it scared the crap out of me. So I just block it out. Don't pay attention. It's gonna be okay. That kind of thing. Anyway, so they also believed in an apocalyptic timeline. So Chad's books and his speeches described natural disasters, wars, and chaos before Christ's return. This is why it's called the Doomsday Mom murders, basically, or case, or whatever. Is because they wholeheartedly believe that the end times were approaching. He said that Idaho, specifically Rexburg, Salem, where he lived, that kind of worked out, didn't it? What a coincidence. Would be a gathering place for the righteous to survive the end times. This belief influenced Lori's sudden move from Arizona to Idaho in 2019. So she went to be with her mans. So they also believed in spiritual authority. So Chad gave himself, it wasn't given by God. He gave himself the power to determine who was light or who was dark and who was taken over, who was a zombie, all this stuff, right? Who was destined to die, ultimately, right? So later, we'll get to it. Prosecutors argued that Chad's system wasn't just a spiritual fantasy. It had become a hit list for him to take out, because Lori's motivations and all this, like I said before, I think there's a lot of mental illness present here. So I'm not quite sure what her motivations were, or if she really was mentally ill to the point where she didn't really understand what she was doing, or she really actually believed in this, right? But Chad's motivations, I think, was just, to get in her pants. Have you seen a picture? I mean, she was almost Miss Texas, and Chad over here, I mean, he's not like a gremlin, but he's not great. Anyways, so in February 2019, this is where Charles Vallow, Lori's fourth husband, files for divorce, alleging that Lori claimed to be a divine figure and threatened to kill him, and he was seeking protection, which, what happens to Charles, I feel so bad for him and the kids and everyone involved in this case. It's just terrible. So July 11th, 2019, in Chandler, Arizona, Charles went to Lori's home to pick up JJ for school, and this was something that they have shared custody of JJ. There, an argument broke out. Lori's brother Alex was there, Alex Cox, and some kind of argument ensued, and Alex shot and killed Charles. Alex claimed self-defense, saying that Charles came at him with a baseball bat. Lori told police Charles had been abusive and that she feared for her life. However, body cam footage from the police show Lori very calm, even giggly, outside the house after Charles' death. I've reviewed that body cam footage, and she's even, like, flirty. It's gross. It's gross. Especially for, like, what just freaking happened. You're not even, like, even if I was, like, happy that someone was dead, I think I would still be, like, in shock of, like, what just freaking happened, you know? Anyway, so no arrests were made at the time after Charles' death. Later, digital evidence and witnessed testimony painted Charles as a loving father who feared for his life. In the divorce filings, he wrote that Lori believed she was a godlike figure sent to usher in the second coming. So, he was trying to get away from her. Poor Charles. Lori's niece, Melanie Bordeaux Polowski, that's fun to say, went through a divorce in 2019 as well. Her ex-husband, Brandon Bordeaux, I think it's how you say it, reported that Lori, Chad, Alex, and Melanie, Lori, our main character here, Chad Daybell, Alex, her brother, and Melanie, her niece, were all part of the cult-like group. So she's getting more and more people into this. October 2nd, 2019, Brandon said that someone had shot at him outside his Gilbert, Arizona home. A bullet narrowly missed his head. The Jeep used in the attempt shooting was later traced back to Charles Vallow. It was his Jeep, but Charles had already passed away and was in Lori's possession after his death. And so investigators believe that Alex Cox, Lori's brother, was the shooter in this case. So September 8th, 2019, this is when Tylee Ryan, Lori's middle child, and she's like, 16 at this? So she was born in 2000, she's 17. So Tylee Ryan is last seen on September 8th, 2019. This is when this picture of her and JJ are seen at Yellowstone. So they took a trip to Yellowstone and took this picture, and that's the last anyone sees of her. September 22nd, 2019, this is when JJ Vallow is last seen at Lori's apartment in Rexburg, Idaho. That weekend, they had friends Melanie Gibb and David Warwick visiting, and that's when they said they last saw JJ. October 19th, 2019, Tammy Daybell, Chad's wife, dies at home in Idaho. This is all very sudden. Death later ruled a homicide, but at first it is ruled like natural causes. And this is like, I think she's like in her 40s, like a healthy, she had just had a checkup, healthy woman, and she dies of natural causes? Huh. And two, I don't think I have it in my notes. I should have, maybe I do have it in my notes. Oh yeah, I do have it in there. Okay, hold on, I'm getting there. So October 19th, this is when she passes away, and thankfully later said to have been homicide by asphyxiation, and after they exhumed her body, which thank God. Earlier in October, just weeks before her death, Tammy called 911 after a masked man shot at her with what she thought was a paintball gun in her driveway in Salem, Idaho. She later told friends she was unsettled but physically unharmed. So, and then just a few weeks later, she dies suddenly of natural causes at home. And Chad was even telling people that he had these visions of Tammy passing away. And a month later, she's dead. And it's natural causes? Okay. So it's important to note that Tylee, JJ, and Tammy were all labeled dark by Chad. And again, I mentioned that hit list. You betcha it was. And his motivations, he just wanted Lori. There was no... You can tell me I'm wrong, but like, he's a man. He knows what he wants. He's going to get what he wants. So November 5th, 2019, Lori marries Chad Daybell. His wife just freaking died. And they marry each other in Hawaii. Perfect place for a murder wedding. It's like the red wedding, but different. So this is 2 weeks after Tammy's death. Unbelievable. November 26, 2019, Rexburg police conduct a welfare check to check for JJ. And Lori lies about his whereabouts, claiming that he is with her friend Melanie Gibb. And I know that there's like an exchange between Melanie and Lori, and Melanie's like upset that she's like, no, he's not freaking with me. Like, why are you telling police that? So that's when the investigation into both missing children begin. Where is Tylee and where the freak is JJ? December 11th through the 12th, 2019, Tammy's body is exhumed for autopsy. Nice. As part of the kids' missing persons case. On another note, Alex Cox actually dies. Her brother. In Arizona the very next day. Apparently he had died from natural causes of pulmonary embolism. And that's fishy. You know, he had even said that he felt like he was their fall guy, right? He had supposedly had done all these things. He had even tased Lori's ex-husband, Joseph, after she accused him of abuse. And then he allegedly went to go shoot Brandon, went to go shoot Tammy, and we'll see that it seems like he was the one that was to remove the children as well. So, was this part of the plan? Did Lori, set up the murder of her brother, or was this really just natural causes and maybe the stress just was too freaking much, and maybe the guilt, right? So anyways, and he had shot Charles Vallow, by the way, and killed him. So December 30th, 2019, this is when Rexburg police publicly announced that Tylee and JJ are missing. And Lori is ordered to produce the children by January 30th, 2020. So remember, this is all during COVID as well. So it can't be too hard to misplace some children during COVID and lockdown, but who knows? February 20th, 2020, Lori is arrested in Hawaii on Idaho charges related to the desertion and non-support after failing to produce the children. And she is extradited back to Idaho in March. Justice, glory be. June 9th, 2020. This is heavy. Human remains of Tylee and JJ are found buried on Chad Daybell's property in Fremont County, Idaho, where Chad is promptly arrested as well. So they had gathered Alex Cox's data from his cell phone, and it said that he was in and around that area at the time that they think that they killed the children. And it was Chad the next day who texted Tammy that he had killed a raccoon. So probably to cover his tracks in case she saw something, smelled something like that, right? So anyways, so May 25th, 2021, this is when the grand jury indicts Lori and Chad for first-degree murders of Tylee, JJ, and the conspiracy to murder Tammy Daybell. So what evidence did the prosecution have? So they had the children's remains, unfortunately. JJ Vallow was found wrapped in plastic bags and duct tape and buried in a shallow grave on Chad Daybell's property. The autopsy showed that he died of asphyxiation. Tylee was found nearby. This is really, really rough, guys. Her body had been dismembered and burned, and her remains were reduced to charred bone and tissue fragments. Okay. Digital forensics showed that Alex Cox's phone pinged at the burial sites, like I was saying, on the exact days that the children vanished. So, motives. So, what motives did they come up with? The prosecutor. I don't know what his motive was, but let's see what they got out of it. So, motive, life insurance and the benefits. So, Lori continued collecting JJ and Tylee's Social Security survivor benefits after their deaths. She and Chad also sought life insurance payouts from Charles Vallow and Tammy Daybell. I think before Charles had died, though, he actually changed the beneficiaries. I don't know if it was to his children or what he did, but he did change it, and so Lori was real mad about that. They also cited spiritual justification. So witnesses testified that Lori and Chad used apocalyptic teachings to justify labeling people, even children, as dark spirits and zombies. Friends Melanie Gibb and Zulema Pastinas testified, and Zulema is Alex Cox's, I think, ex-wife or his girlfriend or someone, testified that Lori said that JJ and Tylee were possessed and might need to be removed. The state argued Lori killed for financial gain and used religion to cover up, which, if she's telling you this, why didn't you do anything or say anything? That's very, especially if she's acting like erratic, like someone starts saying that, shoot, tell someone, say something, dude. They also had evidence, in Lori's own words, they had jail calls between Lori, Chad, and Melanie, capturing Lori, minimizing the missing children's situation, and defending her choices. Another recorded call with her surviving son, Colby, poor Colby, had him begging for answers about his siblings, and Lori remaining very cold and evasive. There was even text messages. Lori and Chad exchanged texts about zombies, light and dark ratings, and casting out spirits around the same time the kids disappeared. And I saw too, like, Colby was even trying to contact Tylee, and it seemed like someone else was texting him instead of from Tylee's phone. So I can only imagine that it was Lori texting her own son from her dead daughter's phone. Just unbelievable. On September 9th, 2019, the day after Tylee was seen, Chad texted Lori, "Well, I had an interesting morning. I buried a raccoon in the pet cemetery." Oh my God. Prosecutors argued was coded reference to Tylee's burial. And then there was the paintball incident. Tammy reported a masked man shot at her with a supposed paintball gun 2 weeks before her death, and then also Brandon's incident as well. October 19th, 2019, Tammy died suddenly, initially listed as natural causes, but with her exhumation showed asphyxiation. Can't say that word, sorry. Evidence tying Lori to Tammy's death. She married Chad Daybell 17 days after Tammy's death in Hawaii. Why Hawaii? I thought the promised land was like Idaho. Why didn't you just... Anyways, witness testified that Lori had told friends Tammy would soon die, freeing Chad to be with her. How do you know that, Lori? Prosecutor said Lori conspired with Chad and Alex to eliminate Tammy. No crap, dude. The defense. Let's see what they got. Oh, she's not here. She's elsewhere. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the defense. Lori's attorneys claim that she was a loving, devoted mother manipulated by Chad Daybell's influence. She was influenced by that D. That apocalyptic D. This is a PG-13 channel, apparently. They argued no direct forensic evidence tied Lori's hands to the murders. The I can't talk today. The prosecutors emphasized that Lori lied about the children's whereabouts repeatedly. She showed no grief after their disappearance or discovery, and the totality of evidence, the digital, the financial, the witness testimony, the religious beliefs, the concealment, of remains, proved conspiracy, and active participation in the murders. So, you don't get out of this, Lori girl. Sorry. May 12th, the day before my birthday, 2023, a jury finds Lori guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, first-degree murder of J.J. Vallow, and conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Tammy Daybell. Multiple counts of conspiracy and grand theft for stealing their Social Security benefits. That's a shame. July 31st, 2023, she is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Bye-bye, Lori. Bye. In 2024, Chad Daybell is tried separately in Idaho. Guess what? A jury finds him guilty of murders of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. Bye, Chad. Really bye, because he is actually sentenced to death. Woo. How'd that work out for you, Chad? In spring of 2025, in Arizona, Lori is convicted of conspiracy in the murder of Charles Vallow. Justice for Charles! Justice for Charles! She represented herself. Oh, is that on tape? We'll love to see that. Sentencing for this is pending, actually, right now. So, an expected conviction, sometime in the next year. But holy crap, guys. That was so much. And there's like so much more. There's so much more detail. I could have really gone really hard with it and given you like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours if I really wanted to, but we are like a 40-minute cutoff episode, so I'm sorry I didn't give you everything, but that was pretty good. That was most of it. But anyways, what do you guys think of that case? Justice is definitely served in this case, and you know, unfortunately, we lost all those people and these children, but at least people responsible are, you know, have consequences, and that's all we can really ask for. So, you guys like my pony today? It's real high. Okay, so like always, I like to end on a quote. David McKay once said, "Motherhood is the greatest potential influence either for good or for ill in human life." Lori Vallow's story shows the darkest side of that truth. Instead of protecting Tylee and JJ, she became the danger that ended their lives. A chilling reminder that a parent's duty is sacred, and when betrayed, the damage is beyond repair. It's really, really, really sad. And I know I'm focusing on like the motherhood part of this and the children, but Tammy and Charles also lost their lives too. So a little focus on them as well. But yeah, like if you're a parent out there, you know that it's a huge responsibility to raise your children to be good humans. And when you betray that and you do the worst thing you could possibly do by taking the life of that child, man, it's just unforgivable sins. And I believe that JJ and Tylee and Tammy and Charles are all in a better place now. And so I take that as peace with this, right? But honestly, just, you know, she's going to spend the rest of her life in jail, and Chad is sentenced to death, so bye, Chad. But, you know, I hope that she spends the rest of her life, you know, reflecting on what just happened, and hopefully she eventually sees what she did was wrong, you know. But in the meantime, I hope that you found some inspiration from that, and maybe some, I don't even want to say like, it's not even closure, it's just like, there's never closure with these cases. It's always just a bummer, but trying to glean some kind of positive out of it, right? Okay, so without further ado, the piece that I did for this. Oh, I love it. It's so cute. Oh, it's a little girl with her mama in the sun. I don't know. When I did this piece, I was thinking of my daughter Maggie, and oh, just what a sweet, precious thing it is to be a mother and to be a parent, and to have such an important role in these tiny little lives. I really wanted to emphasize that and just remind myself and others that it's not something you should take lightly at all. And two, even if you're not a parent and you're an uncle or an aunt or a friend, whatever, a community member, we are tasked to raise our children to be good humans. So I just hope that you take that, and if you need to make adjustments, make adjustments. All right, guys. Well, that is the end of this case. I hope that you enjoy these cases as much as I love putting them together. And don't forget to submit a case to Casey with the link below. If you have a case that you want me to cover, please enter it below and tell me all the dirty details, and I will give you a shout out in the episode. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment this channel and this video. That way you will never miss one of my terrible but hopefully inspirational at the end stories. All right, guys. I love you so much. Be kind to yourself, be kind to one another, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!